Hello and welcome back, most illustrious members of the Detail. I'm your host D, also known as MtF Doom on Marvel Snap, and today we have what is genuinely, no sarcasm involved, the best OTA patch we have ever had. I hope you enjoy. As always, if you enjoy this content, a like, a follow, and a subscription especially goes a long way. We're hoping to hit 500. You can help me get there. I appreciate you so much. So, if you don't know, an OTA patch is what would be called like a hotfix in other games. It's over the air, they refer to it as in Snap. It does not require the servers to be like shut down or anything, basically is what it means. And usually it's just used for numbers tweaks, like adding 1 power, subtracting 1 power from a card. This one's actually pretty big. This is like one of the bigger ones they've ever done. And I think I like all of it, having read through it once already. I was going to do this blind, but my Discord kind of blew the fuck up when this came out. So instead I am privy to this info. But I am a bounce player. Bounce has gotten me, if you don't know, bounce has gotten me to infinite multiple times, and it is one of the archetypes I like the most because it reminds me the most of Magik. It actually feels fundamentally like playing a different game a lot of the time, which they go over here. And they say that because there's a skill edge in bounce that there isn't in some other decks. Like you can be as good as you want at a Lockjaw deck or at a Hela deck, and it sometimes doesn't matter. Like there's not, you're not like a bad player for playing them. You're a bad person for playing Hela, but you're not, whether you are good or bad at some decks can mean a lot less than it can mean with the bounce deck. And you can get a lot of like really, really edge cases where you pull out a little bit extra power that your opponent can't play around, or that's hard to play around. You end up pitching priority really often in ways that can be frustrating, because even if an opponent has counterplay, they're also probably going to have priority because of how Kitty Pryde works and how priority doesn't get checked at the beginning of the turn. It gets checked after Kitty Pryde bounces, which would be another change that they could make that they haven't here. So ultimately what happened? Well, Kitty Pryde became a 1/2 that just gets +1 power on return. So at base, she is a little bit better, but you now have to, she does not go in as many decks as she used to. Now, this does narrow her from being, she was seeing play in a pretty cool Shuri doubling Kitty Pryde and then Taskmaster turn 6 thing going on. That was cool. She was seeing play alongside other decks that just wanted to play a 5 and a 1. I showed off a Jean Grey deck that really wanted Kitty Pryde as she used to exist and not so much as she exists now. She's now going to only kind of be good if you can hit Angela, Bishop, or Collector, preferably more than one of them, with bonus stats. So Kitty Pryde is not the catch-all good card, and I think the game's, and again, like, I think the game is better for it. I think the game is better when there's less cards that just go in all kinds of decks and more cards that you have to put in effort to make good, because ultimately this is always going to be worse. Like, on average, this is going to be worse as a stat line on her own, but in the deck that's playing Collector, Angela, Bishop, and gets those engines going, this is still a really good card, just not in every deck. Hitmonkey has gone from a 2/0 that gets +2 power for each other card you played to a 3/2 with the same on reveal. So this is probably the biggest nerf, certainly to the bounce deck, but maybe also just in general. That one cost means quite a lot to Hitmonkey, but it is not a death knell. I think you're going to have to do a lot, again, like Kitty Pryde, I think you're going to have to do a lot more work to get monkey to be worth it. Right now, it's too easy to just have like a 10 power hit monkey without really having put in a ton of effort. Notably, both of these are now worse with Bast, because Bast was giving a huge bonus on one. If you hit both Kitty Pryde and Hit Monkey, or even just one of them, that's a ton of power. It's less now, right? It's still a boost if you Bast them, but it's not. It isn't obviously as big, and them like Hit Monkey costing more is the biggest nerf they could have given. Had they just given Hit Monkey like negative power to start, it wouldn't have been as bad. This is the number you really have to worry about with Hit Monkey. Ultimately, it's going to mean that you have to do the beast and then, Hit Monkey for 0 value on 3 and then beast it back if you want to start getting like incremental value. You want it to actually be good enough to play. But it also has a lower floor, right? Like as a 3-4 or a 3-6, it's not a 3-4 is pretty bad. It's not winning you a lot of games. A 3-6 isn't the worst. If you can play 2 other cards on 6, a 3-6 isn't the worst thing in the world. And, with Mysterio, it's still really good. But ultimately, this hits, I think, that deck much harder. But I also think it's probably for the best. Genuinely. As someone who really loves Bounce, I haven't been playing it because it's more like playing Magic to me than it is like playing Snap. And like when I want to play Magic, I'll just play Magic. Then we have Spider-Ham, another really good change. Spider-Ham's just a 2/2 instead of a 1/1 now. I think that this is a great change. The card is really like, it's oppressive in a very unfun way, in the way that like when Cosmo decks are really good, you're just like not having as much fun with the game. And I don't even think this is that big a nerf, except for insofar as it doesn't get bounced and replayed sometimes. And ultimately, they point out that it hits Apocalypse. It hits a bunch of things. Apocalypse being one of those hits is like currently the big one that I really hate, because it's one of the only outs people have to the deck I'm playing. But even still, I think that this is better. I think Spider-Ham is good for the game ultimately. Like, I don't want to be that person who's like, well, it beats the deck I'm playing, so I don't like it. I think it's good for the game ultimately, but I think it's better for the game the harder it is to take advantage of multiple Spider-Ham hits and possibly strip your opponent of like more than one resource, because everyone knows that just isn't that fun. But conversely, it isn't good enough to run tech cards. Like when Leech Leader was really good, or at least Leech Lockjaw, right? There was like a Thanos Leech Lockjaw deck, was really good. Some people would try playing Infinite decks so that you could play a suddenly vanillaed up Infinite. Spider-Ham kind of has the same counterplay, but it's not so oppressive that you are thinking about teching into that. But I'm glad they're making this change before Spider-Ham gets to that point, because I don't want to live in a meta where the optimal play is playing against unfun cards. And I hope that that sentence made sense. There's a lot of caveats to that, but I think everyone kind of agrees and understands with that. If you're listening to this, you're probably on board with that line of thinking. So all this is good. It's a little weird that they called this a bounce change, but fine. I'm on board with all of that. These are the ones that I'm actually really excited about. Phoenix Force is now a 4/5 with the same effect instead of a 5/6. They point out that they actually buffed it in testing from a 5/5 to a 5/6, but that if you are playing multiple man destroy, this is actually a worse stat line. A 5/6 is actually a worse stat line than a 5/8, because suddenly you can have it shanged, which is really funny. But ultimately, just having it, like, again, like the Hitmonkey thing, this number is the more important one. The fact that it can come down on 4 means there's different things you can do with it. There's another change later that means more for this. I'll just spoil it, I guess. Magik's a 3/2 now. So because of that, the ability to like play this plus Carnage on 6, right? Because that wasn't possible before. So you go Carnage, well, you would go Carnage, then Phoenix Force. So you destroy something, you immediately Phoenix Force it back to life and fuse it with the Force. And then you still have a turn 7 because of the magic change is at least interesting. It's at least interesting. Yeah, and I don't know that I agree with this, how bad it is to get hit by a Shang with the multiple man thing. Like, ultimately, it is a feels bad moment, but like in general, you were already going like Phoenix Force on 5, moving it plus Heimdalling on 6, and it's like, okay, well, yeah, some of your multiple man hits are shanged now, but like you added a ton of power with that line, so you were probably in a winning position anyway if all they could do is like Shang and a 2-drop. I don't know how often you were losing, but I guess some amount of people were losing, and it was freaking them out. So, but ultimately, I like this as a 4-5, way better than a 5-6. Cool. Ghost Spider is just a 1-2 now that moves your last card. It's absolutely great. Fantastic. It's absolutely sick. Love this for Ghost Spider. The biggest downside, again, like, you are never playing Ghost Spider for the stats that she offers. You are playing Ghost Spider because she moves the last card you played here. So it's just Iron Fist in reverse, right? Like, this is great. This is great. This is such a good change. Like, oh, she's vulnerable to Killmonger. Nobody gives a shit. You're not playing Ghost Spider for the power she offers. You're playing Ghost Spider to move a card. 1 mana to move a card is better. This is great. I love this. Living Tribunal is very nice now at a 6/9. This makes a lot of sense because Living Tribunal is ass bad and could easily be a 6, maybe not 12, but like it could even be more than a 6/9. Although that's the next breakpoint, right? Because it needs to be divisible by 3, so 12 would be the next one. But this is fine to good. Like, the fact that Living Tribunal as the 6/6 only added the same amount of power to all lanes as a Mr. Fantastic is hilarious and really bad. Obviously, it also has this special ongoing where it turns all your people into Mr. Fantastic, but like, it needed more power. It's still not going to see any play, but that's fine. Like, the card is just fun to play. I don't care whether or not it sees play, because this is such a unique effect. If you can make it work, that's really cool. At a 6/9, it's good, right? Like, yeah, again, like, oh, it opens it up to Shang-Chi, but like, who cares? Like, nobody, the deck loses not to Shang-Chi, but to Enchantress, because you're trying to do like Iron Man stuff, right? Like, yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Nobody cares about Shang-Chi. Goddamn. Magik, we already talked about. Again, really good change. A 3/2 from a 5/3. I think this is even better in negative now. I know it's technically less power, but it curves into negative better, right? So you go Magik on 3, negative on 4. You already have your limbo set up. You have your extra draws coming. The fact that you can also now use Magik to fight Storm is at least interesting, right? They try to flood and you turn it into limbo, thereby also almost guaranteeing that they won't have, unless they're also playing Scarlet Witch, which not very many people are right now, it kind of protects your limbo in a way by playing it counter to their Storm. Ultimately, they are also going to make it so that you can play it on turn 6. You can play Magik on 6, but that her on reveal will not go off. Right now, that's not the case, but they just want you to know that, which is even a better change, right? Open Magik up to be a more general utility card. Awesome. Love it. And then the Great Web is appearing less often, which is great, because this is fucking abysmal. The Great Web is just so random. It can win you or lose you games at literal dice roll levels of random, and I hate that. So I'm glad it's going to show up less frequently. That is it. There was some other changes about variants that I guess weren't able to be infinity split before, but that's it for the changes that matter. All these changes do matter. I like every single one of these changes. I don't do a lot of complaining in general about the game. Like, I don't like it for the same reason I don't like lots of things where the end goal is like expropriating as much money from people as possible, because it leads to a lot of bad outcomes. But for the health of the gameplay experience, these are all really, really good changes. And I don't know what else to say. I'm really glad to see all of these. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you everyone who made it this far. If you did, perhaps join the Discord or at least subscribe. Perhaps, because you're my target audience. You're still here. Thank you so much. A special thank you to the following: The Tiny Ruby, A Frog in a Tent, Clips, Crayon Eater, Cole D, Polyhaze, Sartorius, Demisi, KD, Diston Nelson, and Matt Back. They are people who have gone above and beyond to support this channel, either monetarily or through some kind of art or through some kind of input. I appreciate all of you so much, and I give the OTA changes today 5 masks out of 5.